All right, everybody. Tuesday, November 18th. We do have two special guests for those of you that are not watching on YouTube. It is Jake J-Boy Crain, the host of Crain and Company over at the Daily Wire. Explain to us what's going on, Jake. We get the daily double today, which is exciting.
Yes, Mama got called into work on an emergency, so Viola right here, my 10-month-old's she's excited about James Franklin too, so she wanted to give her input.
So, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't gotten a chance, go ahead and check out Crain and Company. They do a fantastic job. They are on my rotation with
Thank you.
Josh Pate and Solid Verbal. So, to set the table, there are two questions that I'm going to ask everybody I speak to about this. And my first question is the Franklin firing. What was your original reaction to Penn State letting James Franklin go?
I would call it surprise. I wouldn't say shock like a lot of people had. There had been some rumblings kind of going on at Penn State, this year especially. And you look last year and the way it went down, I think that's where the shock value comes in, where you see kind of how far they've advanced. So look, to be honest with you, after being in the business for a decade and 7 years at the Division I level doing it, there's really very few things that can shock me anymore. So to be surprised still kind of gets me, but in a way, I understand the people that are making fun of Penn State. You look at how many games James Franklin won, but I tell you this, whether from a Penn State fan, a Virginia Tech fan, an Alabama fan, an Auburn fan, it doesn't matter. I will never have a problem with the standard being so high that consistent excellence isn't expected. And I think Penn State showed you they're sick of just being invited to prom. Hell, at this point, they just want to be prom king once. Can he be prom king one time? And James Franklin, he just he wasn't able to get them over the hump there. And so surprised but not shocked would be the way I'd put it.
I completely agree. I think people feel like they have to choose a side. Like it was so ridiculous that they fired him, or they should have fired him a long time ago. Ultimately, the people's whose opinions matter the most are the decision makers at Penn State and the fan base at Penn State.
For sure.
Ultimately, you reach a breaking point, and it seems that Penn State got to that point.
Well, didn't it start to feel stale? Like, even though they were having like success, like it was just like, it's like, look, like I love, man, Snatch is one of my favorite movies with Brad Pitt in it. But I watch it just every once in a while, because if I just watch it over and over again, it's going to get boring to me. It just felt like at Penn State, it was just like watching reruns of an old show you used to like, but they didn't make any new episodes, or you didn't find out the happy ending that was supposed to happen.
It's kind of an unfair comparison, given that Calipari won a national championship, but Calipari's message got stale at Kentucky. And unless you're an all-time great, it's very rare for you to be able to pitch the same thing for so long, see the same results, and for people not to get sick of it. So let's put that in a box for a second with James Franklin. Now, as a national guy, what is your perception of Virginia Tech in 2025, just as a whole? And then what was your expectation for Virginia Tech when that job came open and they were looking for a coach?
Well, I was one of the few, even if you go back to last year, that, had been pretty critical of Brent Pry. And when I brought up at the end of last season that I think there's a pretty decent chance that they're going to fire him this next season, I had, some Virginia Tech fans that agreed, and others were like, man, no, he's been building this thing. They're going to give him some more time. My perception of Virginia Tech, look, I'm 36 years old. I grew up, and Virginia Tech was a problem for all of college football. I mean, you talk about the Mike Vick days, but the Marcus Randall, like I can go back, and hell, I remember Auburn playing in 2004, playing Virginia Tech.
Yep.
Auburn was undefeated in the Sugar Bowl, I believe it was. So I've always had a ton of respect for Virginia Tech, not just because of the Inner Sandman entrance. That's a cool thing. There's a lot of cool entrances in college football, but Virginia Tech had always been pretty dadgum good when I was growing up. So I've always had a lot of respect for the brand, but I think I'd be remiss to say in the past, 4, 5, 6 years, there has been a fall off. It seemed a little bit like Virginia Tech had kind of got left behind. When you look at what's going on in Miami, and we know about Florida State, but then you look at SMU, right, making the college football playoff, it kind of felt like Virginia Tech was a little bit in that Nebraska dinosaur stage of, well, it used to be a pretty hot brand. They used to be pretty good, but now they're just running the mill. That's why I think this James Franklin hire and this chain of events not that Virginia Tech would have never gotten back to true championship relevance. I think they would have popped up in the radar every now and then. But now you have a legitimate chance to not only get back into that conversation, but to start being a focal point of that conversation because of this hire. There's good hires, there's great hires, and then there's what James Franklin is at Virginia Tech, which is a Grand Slam hire. And to be honest with you, if he would have not gotten fired at Penn State, I don't think even with the opening, and this is no disrespect to Virginia Tech, that you could have gotten a caliber of guy like James Franklin, who I think now, and this is what I told Auburn fans about Bruce Pearl, and I'm not trying to be too long-winded, but this is a very important point. Virginia Tech wanted James Franklin after he got thrown away like trash at Penn State. That does something to it, because once Virginia Tech starts hitting, and it's going to hit, there's going to be a lot of people calling for James Franklin, but I guarantee you he'll think twice because Virginia Tech was there when he fell on his face, and that means something, I think.
You know, it's very interesting because I went through quite an interesting stage with the Virginia Tech fan base, and I actually had a friend, and it's shocking, 2 years ago. He's an Ohio State fan, and he said, in 2 years, you will fire Brent Pry, and Penn State will fire James Franklin. He has a text message of this. So I had the benefit of kind of reacting immediately to James Franklin. And James Franklin crushed it in Virginia. James Franklin, he's very much like Buzz Williams' kind of personality, where you're forced to pick to love him or hate him.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of the Darth Vader of Virginia Tech because he raided Virginia all the time. And immediately when he said, you're going to hire James Franklin, I was like, I don't like that at all. But if you think about it for like 15 seconds, it's like, yes, this would be tremendous. He recruits the area well. He's extremely well respected. He wins 10 games a year, which is the bar that we've been striving to get to. I think it was interesting to watch Virginia Tech fans go from, this is not even in the realm of possibility, so I'm outwardly against it. Oh, it is in the realm of possibility, I'm still kind of against it.
Yeah.
To then the last 3 weeks where it was weird. It was like this 3-week period where it's done, but it's not done. And everyone's like, well, if this doesn't happen now, I'll be devastated. Right. So,
yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me, like, you know, there's always that guy that you go to the bar with who talks to the girl. And at first the girl rejects him, and he's like, well, you know, he comes back over. He's like, she's not that good looking anyway. I really don't care. But then she talks to him later and he just falls in love with her. Like it kind of feels like that. But two, you know, obviously James Franklin has a ton of experience and winning experience. But, you know, to the Virginia Tech fans out there, they're like, well, you know, he didn't win really big in the Big Ten. So why should we be that excited? Brother, listen, the ACC and the Big Ten are not the same. They're not the same. You can, you know, we can sit here and beat our chests and go ACC versus Big Ten and Big Ten versus SEC. I think any rational college football fan, all 14 of them, would say that you have a better chance to win big in the ACC than you do in the Big Ten consistently. Not because there's just all amazing teams in the Big Ten. That's not the truth, or that there's all bad teams in the ACC, but it's at the top. The top of the Big Ten is so much stronger than the top of the ACC. Just look at the ACC now. I had to stop betting it. I had to stop betting games in the ACC because it's just, you know, it's unbelievable. It's like watching the NCAA tournament every week, you know, watching a 14 seed beat a 3.
You know, a couple of things. Number one, somebody can't win the big game until they do. This is not a situation where you have somebody who's just got onto the scene or whatever. Like that is the craziest.
You remember
thing.
that with Kirby? You remember that with Kirby? He can't win the big one. He can't win the big. Yeah, then he rolls up 2 in a row and smokes them.
It's just crazy to me how we put these ceilings on guys who have been in a sport for a certain period of time. And at the end of the day, something is true that you can't do something until you actually go out and go ahead and do it. And Marcus Freeman, they were thinking he wasn't the answer at Notre Dame. And 10 minutes into Kalen DeBoer's tenure at Alabama, he wasn't the answer at Alabama. So, you know, we're never going to stop speaking in absolutes, but we continue to do that. Now, with you on this show, I had to make some parallels into the SEC. And I'm really glad that you mentioned the path, because I think that Arkansas got a little bit of an interesting, not a reminder, but maybe a PSA So Arkansas and Virginia Tech were debating over the course of this seance, who's a better job, who's a better job, who's a better job. And I'm not here to say that the ACC is a better conference than the SEC because that nobody's making
Virginia
that point.
Tech's a better job than Arkansas. I'll tell you right now.
So here is why I believe that. If James Franklin goes on television and he says, I want to win a national championship. I'm not saying it's possible to win a national championship at Virginia Tech, but it is easier to make it to the college football playoff 100%. At Virginia Tech and the ACC than it is to win 9 or 8 games at Arkansas. Mm-hmm. So I'll turn it over to you because I'm sure you've thought about this, but I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, well, and again, the first thing people do that Arkansas fans, when they hear that, will be like, oh, that's ridiculous. What a stupid thing to say. We're not saying either is a bad job. That's where these arguments all get misconstrued. You think just because one job is better than the other, then therefore that other job isn't that good. It's not very important. That place sucks, this, that, or the other. No, I think they're both really good jobs. I think you can get paid a lot of money to coach college football at both of those places. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, and you brought it up, is your path. Not only your path for 1 year, but your path to be able to recreate it to give yourself more chances when you make the college football playoff. That's not to say Arkansas couldn't once every 3 to 4 years find a way to win 10 games 1 year, get into the playoff and have a chance. But you feel like at a place like Virginia Tech, that's not Wake Forest in the ACC or even Boston College in the ACC, a team that has legitimate tradition, legitimate fan base support, and a place that if you start winning, it's going to go absolutely nuts and you can recruit there because the city runs on college football. I'm from Auburn, Alabama. That city runs on the football team. Fayetteville, Arkansas runs on the football team. But at the end of the day, when I look at the ability to win big, and put yourself in a consistent position to win big, it's Virginia Tech.
It's also worth noting that it's not always as simple as is X job better than Y job, because I'll take John Summerall, for example. He hasn't said this publicly, but if John Summerall has the option, he's choosing the SEC over the Big Ten. And on the flip side, there are plenty of coaches that come from the Midwest or come from that area of the country that if they had their pick of the litter in college football, 2-tier jobs that are exactly the same, let's say a Wisconsin and an Auburn, there may be a coach who's definitely taking a Wisconsin and a coach who's definitely taking an Auburn. So it's not as binary as this is better than that. Ultimately, Virginia Tech, state school, very similar area, right in his recruiting patch. I think I'm just most shocked by, a lot of people were like, well, James Franklin, if he's going to wait on Florida State, we should move on. If you're James Franklin, you absolutely should wait to see what every single option is available to you. And I'm pretty surprised that Florida State doesn't make that move up until last weekend. And Virginia Tech honestly has the best case scenario fall directly into their lap. I don't know how this goes.
The stars aligned on this one, dude. Not even just, Penn State just firing James Franklin, when they fired him, is a big deal as well. So you just feel like this one somewhere in Egypt, underneath the pyramid on some old tablet, a Sumerian chiseled this into the prophecy thousands of years ago over there in Egypt, and we'll find it 200 years from now or something. It just typically when things happen like that, I'm a firm believer in things happen for a reason. I just it feels like a good fit, just even off the cuff, just pure gut feel. You're like, man, this makes sense. It really does. It's like Goldilocks porridge, right? This one's a little too hot. This one's a little too cold, but this one, man, this one is just right. And then you don't have to worry about bears attacking you when they come home either. So it's even better.
So before we finish out with the other SEC questions for you, and then we'll get you out of here, what is a realistic I hate the word expectation, because in any season to come in and say you need to win X amount of games is always a silly exercise to do. What I want to know is what should this look like? I say that because Virginia Tech schedule is a perfect example. You're like, man, the tough games that we're going to play this year. Well, we got UVA, who's going to stink. They're on the cusp of making the college football playoff. It's very difficult to just say you need to win X amount of games. Sure. But what should this look like?
Well, I don't think there's any number that would, cause some sort of crazy train wreck out of nowhere in year one. But the transfer portal has changed college football. That's why, when Deion, I know Colorado's struggling now, but when Deion was doing his thing at Colorado, I said on our show, every head coach across America is pissed about this. Not because they hate Deion, but everybody now can be like, look what Colorado did in just 1 year. You can't do that here with the transfer portal. So it used to be that you had 3 years, 3 cycles, right? 3 recruiting cycles to show progress, to show that you're making good on what you said you could do. Well, now with the transfer portal and with NIL money being brought in, so now there's even more pressure to win because more money is being thrown in. Not that it wasn't before, but now it's legal and there's more of it. It's 2 years. So to me, and again, it's hard to sit here and say that before knowing I don't think there's any way Drones is. And Drones is a junior. Is he a junior this year?
He's done. This is
he's done. That's probably best case scenario for Virginia Tech. But at the end of the day, without knowing the personnel, it's tough to judge. But just from a 30,000-foot view, I think anything 8 wins or over in year 1, Virginia Tech fans should take right now. I wouldn't be upset with 7-5 or 6-6. But the big thing is going to be year 2 with him. Because I really think James can put together a roster, especially on the line of scrimmage, because that's where you win and lose games. From a depth standpoint, it's going to take probably 2 years for you to get the depth at least close to right. But again, I don't put it past him to win 8 in year 1.
I just think where I kind of stand with this is I have a big enough sample size to see that I'm going to trust what he's going to do. I'm not primarily concerned with who his defensive coordinator is, his offensive coordinator is. I think you can hang your hat on the fact that Virginia Tech will have one of the most talented teams that they've had in 2 decades on the field this fall, and that is only going to get better.
Well, and tell me if I'm wrong. From the people that I know that are attached over there, there's been a pretty big money push around him to do that as well. That's another thing. When you get a name like this, everybody, it's like in politics when somebody announces they're running, like a big name, the donations start flooding in. All of a sudden you're eating lunch with the guy who invented Facebook or whatever. And I just really think you're going to see all the resources pulled, which is going to give you the best chance in a world where you got to have a $10 to $15 million roster at least to win this thing.
So I put this tweet out today because I just was in such I blacked out when we did the podcast the other day when this became
you were like, oh boy, from old school when he answered the question about Will Ferrell about
we're going streaking.
Yeah. He's like, sorry, what did I say? I blacked out.
So to answer that question, I think our athletic director, who's been much maligned up until this point, which athletic director in the country isn't? He was able to get the Board of Visitors to approve $229 million infused into the athletic department over the next 4 years. So we went
229 over the next 4?
Over the next 4 years. So that brought the floor for Virginia Tech operating around that like bottom of the ACC to being right where Clemson and if you factor in Notre Dame where they exist. Yeah. That your reaction, thank you for doing that, because I don't think a lot of people in the Virginia Tech community understand how big of a deal that is. Like, to jump from the bottom to the top is the only reason we're talking about James Franklin right now. There's no way he's considering this job if he has the resources that Frank Beamer at the end of his tenure and Justin Fuente his entire tenure, and then Coach Pry had up until now. Now, you can argue their coaching ability and whatnot, but Virginia Tech's expectation has been, well, we beat the hell out of Pitt, we beat the hell out of Wake, we beat the hell out of Georgia Tech, but the funding hasn't been there. So it's actually surprising they've been able to do it for as long as they have.
Well, the key word, even the thing that brings the money is, and again, you're more tapped into the Virginia Tech fan base, obviously, than I am. But just from the outside looking in, it seems like y'all got y'all's belief back, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's been a long time. Not that you ever gave up on your team or you stopped being in Virginia, but deep down, every Saturday you'd wake up knowing Virginia Tech was going to play. Yep. You kind of prepared yourself a little bit for what you knew was probably going to happen. And it just chips away at you. Then it just over time, it chips away. Then you're just numb. You're almost numb to it a little bit. But now, here we go. The belief's back, which means the money's coming in, which means the expectation is going to rise. But that's how it should be at a place like Virginia Tech.
Well, to that point, that's why getting James Franklin was so important, because if you ended up with Bob Chesney or Diaz or Fleck, who are 3 coaches who I think are really good, the amount of donor buy-in is not going to be remotely close to the same.
They'd have to show you first.
Correct. And what's scary, I got to tell you, and I love him. He was on staff when I was at Virginia Tech. A tremendous personality, and I want it to go well. And he's at one of the most difficult jobs that there are in the SEC. It really seemed like Shane Beamer to Virginia Tech was going to be what ended up happening at the end of this. And
see, I saw that, but God, that just made it seem like Shane just running home. Like he got beat up. He went out there and tried to start his own lemonade stand and got beat up, and then he's just running back home. I
just don't think that ends well for anybody. Like, the situation is the 1 in 1 million chance that goes well. And the 1 in everything else chance is you bring them home, and then it's another mom and pop shop move, which Virginia Tech has been doing for a long time. Mm-hmm. And if that goes poorly, you're firing your legendary coach's son. It stinks to high heaven. So I'm wishing him the absolute best. Obviously James Franklin is the best option.
100%. I agree 100% with that.
Couple rapid fire ones before we let you go. I'm going to say a statement, and I want you to react to it.
One word, or I just react?
No, it's like a sentence.
Okay.
Penn State right now is assumed to be the third best job in the country available, behind LSU and behind Florida. If Lane Kiffin leaves Ole Miss, I'm not saying it's the fourth best job, but I'm telling you that it's closer to being on par with Ole Miss than probably a lot of Big Ten fans are ready to accept or think about.
Well, I mean, I think that's a big compliment to Ole Miss. Again, when you get into this, it just depends on how you define the best job, because I mean, you could sit here and say Kentucky's the best job in the SEC. They'll pay you $7.5 million and you win 8 games and you're one of the Avengers. Yeah. So it depends on the prism and you know this, the prism you view it through. But after Lane has shown what you can do at Ole Miss, yes, that'll raise the expectation there, but they'll still be happy to win 8-9 games every single year. And you can make really good money doing that. So from that vantage point, I think Penn State and Auburn are very similar. You're in a huge conference. You've won before. It's been proven you can win there, but you're not the biggest dog in your backyard in the biggest backyard. Like with Penn State, you got Ohio State, you got Michigan. With Auburn, you've got Alabama, you've got Georgia. LSU, so I think the parallels between Penn State and Auburn are pretty close.
I like that comp. Now, speaking of Lane Kiffin, if you had to guess, what's he doing?
I think Lane Kiffin ends up leaving Ole Miss. And a lot of people say LSU. I would not be shocked at that. Just something tells me Florida. But trying to guess what Lane Kiffin's going to do, I mean, I don't even know if Lane knows. It's like I say, it's hard to read somebody playing poker when they don't know how to play.
That's true. That's a really good way to put it. What's Arkansas's pivot? Is it Silverfield? Where do you go from here? And I think it was a tough pill for Arkansas fans to swallow, as a whole. Yeah. I think that they just assumed if we want James Franklin, we will be getting James Franklin.
Yeah.
And again, not being familiar with the cash influx to Virginia Tech, and I think kind of taking for granted how easy the path. SMU came into the ACC and has been running the ACC for 2 years in a row. So the paths are going together. If you just come in semi-competently, I promise you can do better than Pitt, and I promise you can do better than some of these other teams. Yeah. That's the thing with the ACC.
Well, it feels like Arkansas and Virginia Tech were kind of swimming in the same pool when it came to coaching candidates, right? There's some parallels there, at least right now where both programs stand. It's interesting for Arkansas because to me, you can get a big name at Arkansas. I think they've got AD problems right now too that they're kind of scaring some guys off, to be honest. But it just feels like Arkansas needs to go young, up and coming. That's what it feels like. Whether that's maybe given air, and I know the last name Morris, they kind of shudder over there when you think about head coaches of what happened before this. But you look at a guy like Eric Morris at North Texas, and you look about the quarterback resume. But at the end of the day, you know what it's lining up for. It's going to be Petrino.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. I was actually in Baton Rouge this past weekend. I was at the Arkansas game, and I was like, I think he just needs to win one of them down the stretch to go ahead and get this job. And he's been close, just hasn't been able to really do it. So
yeah, and I agree with you. It would make it easier. It just, you kind of feel like at the end of the day, though, is there going to be a better candidate out there that Arkansas could get outside of Bobby P?
And
just keep them away from motorcycles and the volleyball team.
And I think it's hilarious how nobody's in the middle. It's either like group of 5 coaches are awesome or group of 5 coaches are awful.
And that's the mistake. And I think you'll agree with me on this. It's just like anything. These it's like you look at Florida. Like, you know what? After Billy Napier, we should never hire another group of 5 coach. Well, Nick Saban was the head coach at Toledo. Like, they act like these guys just all of a sudden, they never are head coaches at smaller schools. It's almost like saying, well, I my first love was blonde and she broke up with me, so I'll never date another blonde again. The minute you need to go get the best guy. And again, there's no guarantees. I watched LSU hire one of the most proven coaches that we've had in college football in a while, and they couldn't fire him fast enough after the Texas A&M game. So, like, you trust yourself, you trust your research. You don't say, well, because this didn't work one time, we're never going to go back to that well. You go hire the best guy. If he's group of 5, if he's Power 4, if he's FCS, I don't care. You go get the best guy.
There were real people, granted, mouth breathers, that were saying we shouldn't hire James Franklin because he coached at the same place that Brent Pry did. Just that mindset.
Yeah, so here's what I would do. If you had somebody that said that, I would ask them for advice all the time on anything and do the exact opposite. I would fade their being. To be honest.
In terms of Auburn, I feel like it was Summerall or bust. Summerall might be going to LSU. Summerall might be going to Ole Miss. Is the backup plan DJ Durkin? Like, where do you go? Where do you go from there?
I think DJ's C right now. Look, you've got to take a lot of these reports you hear with a grain of salt. I can tell you right now, there's a very small chance that LSU is going to hire the coach at Tulane. It's just, and again, I've got some pretty good contacts in there. Same reason they wouldn't sniff Billy Napier because he was at Lafayette. And again, that's probably a good decision to move on from that. But I mean, we have the same issue here in our state. There's no way that Auburn or Alabama would ever hire the current coach at Troy or South Alabama or UAB. They're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Like, good, bad, or indifferent. So I don't think John's going to end up at LSU. The Ole Miss thing to me, again, the timetable for Lane, nobody knows. Like, so what I do think it did was it added leverage to John or on John Cohen and Auburn, like, against them for Summerall to say, listen, I need to know, like, are y'all good with me? Is this going to happen? I still think Summerall ends up at Auburn. But it's going to be interesting to see, what Lane does, because there's going to be so many, not even the Summerall domino, but there'll be so many other dominoes that fall because of that.
It's interesting. You mentioned that. I will tell you, Virginia Tech, if we didn't end up with James Franklin, we very well may have ended up with in-state Bob Chesney. And I think Bob Chesney has a tremendous future.
Well, again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do that. I'm just the reality of the situations. They're not going to do it.
I get it. I got you on that. Last one for the coaching search here, LSU. Do you have a guess? Do you have a feel? I guess you have a feel. Who would you want if you were there?
If I was LSU, I mean, I think Lane's your first call, right? Just like with Florida. But take Lane out of it. And again, this is where it gets so interesting to me, because I don't go into it with any stereotypes of you can't hire this guy because he's there. I think if Joe Brady would want to come back down, I think it would be interesting. I think he would be entertained. But man, I wouldn't be shocked, and it'd be a weird fit a little bit, I think. But I think Drinkowitz's name or Clark Lee at LSU, like those two guys, I would bet on either one of those. Can you? And I've always said this about LSU, and this is what a lot of people thought Brian Kelly was going to bring. I've watched LSU win a national championship with one coach that ate the grass and another one that smoked it. Can you imagine if they had a guy like Clark Lee that could come in there and structurally get the machine right with that personnel? Like,
well, they got it. It's got to be a package deal, because I think Clark Lee's a awesome candidate. he's got to bring Jerry Kill with him. We've been through the Jerry Kill experience, and his impact on Virginia Tech when he was here was tremendous. I think it's a little underrated, his impact that he's having, but it would be Clark Lee gives me a little bit of the Les Miles vibe. He's just turned the weird meter or like the quirky meter.
He just doesn't turn into the Joker at the end.
Yep. Yeah. So that would be interesting. My last question for you. I'm a firm believer that a random job that no one's thinking about is going to open. Josh Pate put out USC. I think the easy one for me, the cop-out would be to say Clemson, but I'm actually going to go with Ohio State. I think the way that college football is structured right now is you are constantly seeing talented coaches be like, this is not something that I want to do or want to participate in until they get their stuff together. So I can see if Ohio State goes ahead, runs shop, and wins a national championship again, I can see Ryan Day saying, you know what, I'm good on this. I'm going to go take a job in the league. Hartline could take this job. Whoever can take this Ohio State job. But do you have a job that wouldn't shock you if it opened, but it would shock the masses?
I think Utah.
Okay. Dillingham.
I think that, with Whittingham, I think he's almost done. Like, I don't think it'll be a go to the NFL move or go to another college. Yeah. I think he's just gonna retire and go drive his motorcycle around. That's the one I would say. And man, what a hell of a coach and a hell of a dude.
Unbelievable story, and honestly underrated. It's crazy to think that Urban was back there all those years ago. And
the whole state of Utah, from a football standpoint, is underrated. It's I mean, you look at obviously BYU, you look at Utah, you look at Weber State and what they've been able to do. Like, they love their football out there.
Jake, I appreciate the time. This was fantastic. Would love to do this again. I wonder when the next time we play we probably won't end up playing these games, but we play like Alabama in 2031. We got a nice little home and home with Ole Miss up down the road.
Georgia,
I hope they
in 3026.
I hope they end up happening. I hope in this conference realignment thing, do you think Virginia Tech has a chair? Are we in position to grab a chair? That's all we need to do. Is be in position. Yes, just not
100%. You're again, the money's there, the brand's there. The people that should be worried are, and again, God, I feel like I'm on some sort of like Wake Forest tear. I've got nothing against them. Like a Wake Forest. Like, I don't think I think there's a group of fives that need a seat at the table before some teams like Wake Forest, and there's a couple others.
Yeah, Jake Dickert, I will say though, you got to pour one out. He's done an unbelievable job.
He's going to get. That's another guy.
Really, really good job. So, Jake, where can everybody find you? And what is your recording schedule? And again, I cannot endorse this show enough. It is on my 1 of 3 rotation for college football talk. So
I appreciate that. Well, we always say there's 3 of us. We only know 4 things, and they all start with F. Football just happens to be one of them. So yeah, it's really easy to find. Best way, look, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that. On YouTube as well. It's Crain and Company, Crain and Company. We record, we put out a show every weekday pretty much at 2:00. We also do instant reactions on the weekend, and we do our playoff reveal reaction that we're actually going to do tonight when it gets shown again. So we're pumping out content all the time. So yeah, go check us out.
Jake, appreciate the time. Best of luck the rest of this season, and we'll do this again soon.
All right, buddy. Good luck to y'all. Congrats on the hire.
Thank you.